Hey everyone, Steven here with Lucky Casts, and today we're going to be taking a look at how to add file uploads to your Lucky application with the Shrine shard. We'll get started by adding the shard itself to our shard.yaml. So let's add that to our regular dependencies section at the bottom here. Next we need to require it in our shards.cr. We'll just require Shrine, like in the step down here. And lastly, we need to set up our configuration for how these files are going to be uploaded. I'm going to add a new config file called uploads.cr, and I'm going to add a slightly modified version of the documented setup here, where we're going to be storing these in Lucky's temp directory that we get in a default application, which you can see over here. There are a lot of other options that you can use if you're wanting to use something like Amazon S3, like I do with Lucky Casts in production, but we're keeping it simple and we'll use local storage in this video. Okay, so with our configs in place, we can go ahead and save these files, and we're going to fail to compile because we need to install our shards, so I'll go ahead and do that. And then we'll run our server just to make sure everything is compiling successfully with our configs. Great, it looks like our Jumpstart app is up and running. So, like I said, I'm starting from a Jumpstart application here, which means I get a little bit of functionality out of the box for free. One of those things is that we added user profiles through Gravatar to a user. But let's say that we want a user to be able to pick between a Gravatar or an uploaded file. To do that, we just need to add a file field to our user model, support it in this form, and then render it. Let's start by killing our server so that we can run some migrations, and we'll generate a migration to add image to users. Let's open up our migration file here, and we can remove a lot of this stock boilerplate stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to alter the table for users. And we want to add a profile image path. That can be a string, but we want it to be nillable so that if a user doesn't want to upload their own image, we'll fall back to a Gravatar. And if we roll back this migration, we should alter the table for user. And let's remove the profile image path. Great. We'll save this. Let's migrate and see if we're good to go. Perfect. We've got our image column added to the user in the database. Now we need to let Lucky know that it exists. So let's go to our user model. And in this user model, we're going to add a new column. It's going to be called profile image path, just like in our migration. And it's going to be a string that's optional. We also want to modify this image helper that comes with Lucky Jumpstart, which right now just returns a Gravatar URL. Instead, we want to check and say if a user has a profile image, which we'll store in a local variable, check presence. Profile image path is our column. So if there is a profile image on the user, then we want to use Shrine to get the new uploaded file from that ID. So what we're storing here is really an ID to an image. It's the path in either your temporary directory like we set up or in S3 if you set up a cloud provider. And we want to get it from the storage key. So we'll set store here, and we want to fetch the URL. Otherwise, if we don't have a profile image set on the user, if they haven't uploaded one, we want to keep the same logic. Great, so now we have a user with a profile image path in the database. The user model in Lucky knows about the profile image path, and we can render a profile image once it's uploaded from the user. Now we need to support it in this form that we see over on the right. And the first stop is in our user settings operation. Now, admittedly, we have quite a bit to do here because we need to handle a couple scenarios. So let's start by adding the file attribute. We'll do that with the file attribute keyword. And we want to call that profile image. This is whatever we want to call it on our form. Then, got my autocomplete going there. Next, before save on this user settings page, we want to see if we can fetch a profile image value. So check if a user's added that. If they have, we want to upload the profile image. And we'll make a private method here to help us out with that. Upload profile image. And we're going to take in an image. I'm going to copy this method body in so that we can review it together. We start with a Shrine upload. So whenever we have a profile image value, we go ahead and upload it, whether it's to our temporary store like we set here, or to a cloud provider. If we have an old profile image on the user, which we can fetch through the profile image path.value here, then we want to delete the old profile image and pass that path in. And then we want to set on the user's profile image path value whatever the resulting ID was that Shrine gave us when we uploaded the new file. The last stop here is that we need to support that delete old profile image method. So let's call that delete old profile image, and that also takes in an image. And again, I'll copy in the body here so that we can review it together. So this looks very similar to our user model, where we were fetching the image to display in our user interface. We fetch the old image using the image ID we passed in. We make sure it exists, and if it does, then we delete it. Pretty easy. Lastly, we need to add the functionality to this form so that it actually shows up. To do that, we first need to make sure that the form for this page is multi-part. Let's head here and head down to our form. Render user form. Here we go. So wherever we mount these user form fields, if you have a file upload field in a form, you need to make the form multi-part. We do that by adding the multi-part true attribute. We're good to go there, and now we just need to add the actual field to our user form fields. We'll do that pretty simply. Let's make it the last field, and we'll do kind of a similar thing here. We'll do call span 12. Just to make it full width, I'm going to add some styling here that's completely optional and dependent on your CSS framework. And then we'll add a shared field. That's going to be our profile image, is what we called that file attribute. And this is actually operation.profileImage. We want to call it the field name profile image, and we want it to render a file input. This is a built-in Lucky helper. And we can add a couple of options here just to make it a little bit cleaner. First of all, we only want to accept images, so we can use this image/star to support any kind of file type signature. So image/PNG, JPEG, anything that the browser recognizes as an image. And then we'll add a little bit of styling just to make it look a bit nicer. Great. So this should be everything that we need. Let's save this. Looks like I've got my user model here I need to save. And then let's start up our server and see what we got. Looks like I have an issue that actually popped up right here. I used the wrong keyword there. Oh, and it also looks like my autocomplete caught me again here. This is just URL. All that the Shrine uses is URL. And there we go. After a little bit of help from the compiler, which I always appreciate, we are up and running. Let me change this out so that we're actually auto reloading here to 3001. And yeah, we can see that we've got a profile image field here now. So if I clicked that and go to my downloads, let's update my photo from this one in the background that you can see there to my kind of animated looking one here. Great. Settings were saved. Let's see what this error is. Cannot find, okay, right. So what we need to do is we need to help Lucky know that we've actually added this file to our temp directory. So if I head over and let me collapse a bunch of this here, we'll collapse everything, open up temp. You can see we got a Shrine directory now, and we have uploads. And sure enough, here's the file I uploaded. So our file uploader is working. But like I said, we need to help Lucky find these files and serve them when our application is up and running. To do that, we want to go to our server.cr. No, I'm wrong. appserver.cr. There we go. We needed to add something to our middleware stack. You can see that we've got our static compression handlers and our static file handlers. We want to add another one of these. But we only really want to serve these temporary files when we're in production. So I'll show you a kind of nifty way to add an optional middleware handler here to the stack. What we want to do is only when we're in production, so I'll do whenever our lucky env production value is true. If we're in production, we don't want to serve any middleware here, so we'll return nil. But if we aren't in production, so testing or in development, I want to use another static file handler, and I want to call the temp directory that we added these file uploads to. I'll mirror the same settings above with fall through false and directory listing false. And then the only thing that we have to add here to our middleware method in general is this array is set so that it has to be full of HTTP handlers. But we've just introduced a scenario where a nil could be in this array if we're in production. So the compiler will complain. Oh, actually no, comma. Now the compiler will complain about the thing I'm expecting. Nope, and I used the old method there. There we go. So we have this issue with this array. Well, what we can do to force this down to HTTP handlers is we can select HTTP handler. Now we're forcing that if this is nil, we just exclude the middleware altogether. And we don't need to specify of HTTP handler anymore because the compiler knows that if you're only selecting those, that's all the array will contain. Great. And just like magic, our page reloaded, and now we can see our profile image here next to basic information. Let's, just for one last test, try uploading a different picture. We'll do the LuckyCasts PNG, and we'll update that. And we'll set our name without an image. Make sure that still works. And yeah, we're up and running. We've got image uploads working. The rest of our form is still working. And if we wanted to upload these images to Amazon S3, then it's as simple as setting up our config option a little bit differently for production, and we're off to the races. If you do want any more information about those additional configuration options and you want them in a video, let me know on Twitter at LuckyCasts. I'm happy to do a follow-up episode about S3. However, you can just visit the repository here, jetrockets/shrine.cr. And down the page a little bit here, you can see there's an S3 storage section, which gives you all the information you need in order to set up an S3 client. Thanks for watching today, everyone, and until next time, this has been Steven with LuckyCasts. Have a great day.